Protests are growing by the week in Bangkok as locals demand reform of their once sacred monarchy.
The younger generation, yes, they are the force behind it.
Bo Mahatana is one of the leading voices in the mounting movement for change. She's currently in court battling 5 charges of sedition, facing a potential jail term of more than 30 years. Make no mistake, this is a country where criticising the monarchy is a cardinal sin.
If you could imagine now the same thing happened to any other country, I would think about the North Korea and the way they portray the leader.
What are people taught to think about the king?
People are taught to think that the king is perfect. Perfect in every way.
He's like a god.
Exactly. When the king said, we love them all the same.
Given the censorship and propaganda in Thailand's mainstream media, Bo's now become a host on a recently launched online news channel.
The role that the whole country expects from the king.
She needs to tread very carefully, but believes she's connecting with a new generation, waking up to the hypocrisy of the king. What do you think when you see those images of the king getting around in a crop top in Germany?
I think the picture with the crop top is in conflict with what the public expect from the king of Thailand. I don't think any Thai would be very pleased to see that. Even the ultra royalists themselves, they would prefer not to see it.
I notice you're being very careful with the way you answer these questions. Is that because you know there could be ramifications if you are too critical of the king?
Certainly, and because I'm very closely monitored by the security agency in Thailand, so it is the full censorship is still there in the mass media. I think this is the major issue at the moment, or we cannot talk about it freely.
Coming up, the king and us.
We were young men training to go to war.
How Australia influenced the young royal.
Not many people really know the real Vajira Longkorn.
And the top secret government cables.
The king's cruelty is one of the most worrying things.
Exposing the king's torment.
It's dictatorship with a smile.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Starting
Long
FaceTime
before
with
King Vajira Longkorn's controversial reign in Thailand, he was just another cadet cutting his teeth at King2 Military College in Canberra.
Not many people really know the real Vajira Longkorn. Really, probably in his life, the only people that got to intimately know him would have been the people at King2 that were close to him over that 4 years.
Gary Stone was assigned to be the then Crown Prince of Thailand's mentor when he arrived in Australia in 1972. This is a photo of the two of them from the time, the pair becoming firm friends over the next 4 years. He's the king now, but when he came out here as a young man, what was he like?
He did everything we expected of him, and we were young men training to go to war. I mean, at the time, like, I suppose that's the fascinating thing, reflecting back all these years. At the time, it was just so normal. There was no big deal about it, you know. Vajira Longkorn, we call him Vaji. He was one of our section, part of our platoon, and yeah, there was no special treatment for him. I suppose it is rather wonderful, really.
But there were challenges. We could reveal secret Australian government cables from the time, which show Vajira Longkorn struggled when he first came to our shores. He is obviously unsure of himself, needs others to lean on, and is seeking security, noted a senior military official. Later, a cable from our ambassador said he believed the Crown Prince found his future responsibilities as king traumatic, bewildering, and overwhelming. Must be a lot of pressure on a young man like that coming out here to learn the rough and tumble of life, knowing that one day he's going to be the ruler of a country.
I often thought about that, and I even talked to him about it at times. I don't think he fully sort of comprehended that, what might be ahead of him. Various sort of criticisms have been made for every royal family member all around the world, and I don't know that many people really know the Vajira Longkorn that we got to know at King2. Personally, he's a quiet, reserved, and quite polite and respectful person. And yeah, and I think that's the sort of the character we experience there, and I'm sure that's what that's the way he's lived most of his life.
On the expense of the taxpayers' money?
The protests against the King of Thailand have now spread to Australia. At a rally in Sydney, I met Thai expat Paul, who's saddened by what's become of the monarchy in his homeland.
It was terrible. So all this sort of thing added up. So, and I've been following the news on the internet, and when this thing came up online, so I thought I should do something about it.
You seem pretty emotional about it. It's obviously something pretty close to your heart.
Behind the Thai smile, that is what it is. Don't you think? The land of smile, but behind the smile, it's dictatorship with a smile, with a suave look.
The protesters here hold photos of activists who've gone missing. They're known as the disappeared.
Since 2016, they've been disappearing in mysterious circumstances, and at least 2 of them have washed up dead in the Mekong River with their legs broken, disemboweled, their stomachs stuffed with concrete.
Andrew McGregor Marshall is an exiled investigative journalist who's been documenting these disturbing developments in Thailand.
The king's cruelty is one of the most worrying things about him. We've seen that in his treatment of his former wives, and of his current mistress, who was thrown in jail for 10 months just last year and only got out recently, with no real legal process.
The king's vindictiveness and abuse of power, it sounds almost like a crazed monarch out of Game of Thrones or something at times.
Absolutely, and this is the problem with monarchy, right? Because you can never be sure whether the hereditary heir is going to be a good king. One of the few things that people used to gossip quite openly about the monarchy during the reign of the previous king. People loved King Bhumibol, but they were really afraid of what would happen when Vajiralongkorn took the throne. His behaviour is almost pathological. He is almost like an elderly King Joffrey. He seems to go out of his way to be cruel. He seems to go out of his way to proclaim that he is the absolute power in Thailand. And that's what has Thais so worried, and that's why so many people are taking to the streets to try to oppose him.
More of these protests are planned for the coming week. Fed up with the king's alleged political interference and expensive lifestyle, activists like Bo Mahatana are demanding reform. Thailand's famous deference to the king is now being replaced by defiance.
It is truly driven by young people. They're not willing to compromise with any of their demand. Unlike the adult who led the previous protest,